They say there is a bird that burns itself to ash only to rise again, brighter, stronger, eternal. But the phoenix is more than myth. It's a mirror, a flame that lives inside every one of us. This is not just a story about fire. It's a story about falling apart and choosing to come back. Join us as we follow the flight of the phoenix through ancient temples, burning skies, and the ashes of the soul. Subscribe now and begin the journey of rebirth. The Phoenix, a flame that rises. Chapter 1, the first flame. At the edge of the Nile, where the sand sings with heat and the sun climbs without mercy, a single bird rose into the light. Its feathers shimmered, amber, crimson, gold, like fire caught mid-flight. They called it Bennu, not just a bird, but the soul of Ra, the sun god, a messenger of light, a keeper of time. It did not hatch from an egg. It did not fall from a tree. It was born from ashes. Ashes it chose. In the temple city of Heliopolis, where priests whispered to the sky, they watched Bennu build its nest, high on a stone that knew the sun better than the moon. Twigs of cinnamon, leaves of myrrh, a cradle woven not for life, but for death. And when the time came, when the feathers dulled and the song quieted, the Bennu bird did not flee. It folded its wings, lowered its head, and lit itself in flame. Fire swallowed it whole, the nest, the bird, the silence. But there, in the soft curl of smoke, came something new. A shimmer, a flutter, a cry not of pain, but of arrival. From the ashes, the phoenix rose. Not a ghost, not a memory, but something more. This was no ordinary death, and no ordinary birth. This was transformation, willed, chosen, sacred. The Egyptians did not fear this fire. They revered it. They saw in the phoenix the secret of the stars, that even the sun must die each night. And yet, it rises. So the myth was born, not to mourn endings, but to teach us that we can choose to begin again. Not when the world tells us to, but when the soul is ready, when the fire calls, when the old life cracks, when we are brave enough to burn. Chapter 2, Sun-bound Soul. The phoenix does not belong to the earth. It belongs to the sky, to flame, to rhythm, to the path the sun carves across the heavens. Wherever light touches, so too does the myth of the burning bird. It is more than legend. It is a truth the soul remembers, that every ending is a beginning in disguise. The Egyptians called it Bennu, the soul of Ra, the heartbeat of the sun god. But the phoenix had many names. Far to the east, in lands where the winds blew hot and dry, they spoke of a great bird known as Simurgh, a guardian spirit, wise and old beyond imagining. She did not simply fly. She carried the weight of worlds on her wings. In Persian myth, Simurgh nested atop the tree of life, not in fire, but in light. Her feathers shimmered silver blue, and her voice healed those who listened. She did not burn, but she changed what she touched, and in changing it, renewed it. In India, the flame danced differently. There, fire itself was a god, Agni, and through Agni came rebirth. The bird of fire was not named Phoenix, but it lived in the blaze just the same. Stories told of glowing feathers falling from the sky, of ashes blooming into blossoms, of souls cleansed by heat and made whole by pain. The phoenix lives in these fires too, always. Because fire is not destruction, it is transformation. Every culture gave the phoenix a shape. Some gave it feathers, some gave it breath, some gave it silence, but all gave it a cycle. Rise, flourish, fall, burn, return. It is the rhythm of the stars, the turning of seasons, the beat of the heart. Even the sun itself follows the phoenix's path. Each morning it rises, strong, blazing, undeniable. Each evening it falls, not in failure, but in rhythm. And still, without question, it returns. To be bound to the sun is to be bound to time, to patience, to the long path. The phoenix reminds us that glory does not last forever, and it doesn't have to. Even light must rest. Even fire must consume itself to become something new. In ancient scrolls and temple songs, they wrote of this cycle not as curse, but as gift, a promise that nothing ends for good, not truly, that what dies in truth may yet live again in truth, deeper still. The phoenix is not reborn once, it is reborn again and again and again. And each time, the fire is different. Sometimes quick, sometimes slow, sometimes barely visible at all. But always, it is real. You may not see the flames, you may not hear the wings unfurl, but in the still hours, in the moments where you feel yourself falling apart, the phoenix is near, waiting, watching, willing to rise if you are willing to let go. This is not just a myth carried across cultures. It is a truth carried in the blood. In Persia, in Egypt, in India, in every land touched by fire or sun or sorrow. The phoenix was never just a bird. It was the memory of becoming, the soul's echo of how to survive change, not by resisting it, but by moving with it, by becoming the flame itself. And so, when people faced ruin, when empires fell, when hearts broke, when old names no longer fit, they turned to the phoenix, not for answers, but for possibility, not to undo the past, but to rise from it. That is the secret the phoenix offers. You do not need to go back to who you were. You are allowed to become someone new, over and over. No shame, no fear, no apology. The phoenix burns, and in burning, it remembers how to fly. So can you. Chapter 3. Words that breathe. Fire. Long before stone towers fell, before oceans had names, the phoenix made its way into the hands of storytellers. And once something is spoken, once it is written, it does not die. It becomes a flame passed between minds, from parchment to voice, from myth to meaning. The Greeks heard of the phoenix through the winds. Sailors from Egypt, caravans from the east, whispers from temples that held too much heat. They wrote it down, curious, doubtful, mesmerized, the bird that built its own funeral pyre, the creature that could not die unless it chose to, the cycle that made death a doorway, not a destination. Herodotus was one of the first, the father of history, with a pen full of questions. He told of the bird that flew from Arabia once every 500 years, carrying the body of its father in an egg of myrrh. He did not say whether he believed it. He only said it was beautiful. Ovid, the Roman poet of change, called the phoenix a creature without rival, a bird of singularity, one that never took a mate, never bore children, never bowed to time. Its death, he said, was not an end, but a transfiguration, a holy fire, sacred as the stars. In the ancient libraries, beneath oil lamps and dust, the phoenix returned again and again. Scrolls, codices, stone tablets, marginalia from forgotten monks. Each time the story was retold, it changed slightly, yet it always burned. Because the phoenix wasn't just preserved in ink, it was reborn in it. Writers did not need to see the bird to believe in it. They only had to feel what it was like to start over, to fall into despair, and then rise. Changed, singed, but stronger. The phoenix became a metaphor in every language it touched. In Greek, it was phoenix, from the word for purple-red, the colour of firelight on skin. In Latin, it was phoenix, a name that clung like smoke to marble halls and empire echoes. But the language didn't matter. Only the meaning did, and meaning, as it always does, found the people who needed it most. To the war-torn, the phoenix was a promise. You can rebuild what was lost. To the grieving, it was a balm. This pain will one day be part of your strength. To the broken, it was a song. You are not done yet. Even philosophers, men of logic and law, could not turn away. Pliny the Elder, who recorded plants and stars and beasts, wrote of the phoenix with careful curiosity. He did not say it was true. He only said that if it were, it would be the most noble of creatures, because to choose one's own death and to return from it was the rarest form of wisdom. The early Christians saw something more. In the phoenix, they saw resurrection, not just of body, but of spirit. They carved it into tombstones, painted it into catacombs, wove it into scripture and song. The fire was not punishment, it was purification, and rising from it was grace. Across centuries, the phoenix became a vessel, a mirror, a symbol too large for any one culture to hold. It became the thing that could not die, not because it was immune to pain, but because it was made of transformation itself. In old cities built on dust, children were told of the bird of fire. They did not fear the flames, they waited for the wings, because in every story the phoenix returned. And in every listener, something deep and quiet whispered, "So can I." Words gave the phoenix immortality. Not feathers, not flight, not fire, language. It moved the myth beyond time, beyond geography, beyond even belief. You do not need to believe in a bird that bursts into flame to believe in the truth it carries, that you can end and begin again, and again, and again. So, when the world changes, when your name no longer fits, when the life you knew crumbles like ash, remember what the poets wrote, what the scrolls preserved, what the storytellers could not let die. That there is a fire that does not destroy, but reveals. A fire that clears away the past so something brighter can grow. A fire that breathes and writes and rises. Chapter 4. A flame carried across worlds. The phoenix did not stay still. It never could. Not in life, not in myth. Its wings stretched across continents, and wherever fire had meaning, the phoenix found a home. It was not just Egyptian, not just Greek, not Roman or Persian or Chinese alone. It belonged to all of them, and somehow to us all. The story flew eastward, on silk roads and salt winds, carried in the memories of merchants and monks. In China, it became something new and something ancient. They called it Feng Wang, a creature of balance, of elegance, of harmony. It did not burn like the phoenix of the West, but it radiated power just the same. The Feng Wang was yin and yang in feathered form. Its wings carried wisdom. Its cry foretold peace. And when it appeared, they said a golden age would follow. The phoenix here did not rise from ash. It rose from stillness, from virtue, from the quiet fire of discipline. It was not about endings, but about equilibrium, a world in balance, a soul in alignment. In the east, the flame did not consume, it illuminated. Further north and west, in the icy reaches of Slavic lands, another legend took wing, the firebird, not a creature of cycles, but a messenger of fate. Its feathers glowed in the dark forests. Its eyes sparked with hidden truths. To see the firebird was a blessing. To catch it was a curse. It brought wonder, but it also brought change, and not all who chased it were ready for what they found. This version of the phoenix was wilder, less forgiving, a symbol of mystery and the untamed power of the unknown. It would not guide, it would not save, but it would transform. In Japan, the phoenix took yet another shape. They called it Ho-Oh, the immortal bird of fire and justice. It appeared only in times of great virtue, when a ruler was wise, when the people were kind, when the earth was in balance. The Ho-Oh descended, and when corruption rose, when greed spread, when power turned inward, the phoenix vanished, without a sound, without a trace, until the world deserved it again. And still farther west, across deserts and islands, in tales whispered over firelight, came echoes of the phoenix, in different names, in Ethiopian stories, in Arabic poetry, in early Islamic texts. Each touched the fire. Each shaped it. Each gave it their own sacred form. This is the truth of myth. A story survives because it can shift without losing its core. The phoenix never had one form. It had many. Because fire does not care about shape, only about spark. And the spark was always the same. Transformation. Whether it came from ashes or light or vision or virtue, the phoenix meant change. It meant hope, wrapped in mystery. It meant pain, wrapped in purpose. It meant that nothing, no matter how lost, was truly beyond renewal. The phoenix crossed religions too, not confined to temples or scrolls. It appeared in Christian symbols, burning and reborn, like Christ, rising from death, not broken, but glorified. It flickered in Zoroastrian visions, in the fire that represented truth and eternity. It found a place in Islamic philosophy, where rebirth was not physical, but spiritual. A soul returning to God with wisdom earned through struggle. No land claimed the phoenix as its own. They simply welcomed it. Because every people, every culture, every broken heart at some point needs to believe in rising. This is how the myth travelled. Not just on roads and scrolls, but through longing. A longing to begin again, to shed the past, to walk through fire and come out whole. Even today, when someone speaks of the phoenix, you do not need to ask what it means. You know, because you have been burned, because you have been ash, because you have wanted to fly again and didn't know how, and something inside you still believes you can. In that way, the phoenix has never left us. It lives in every language, every symbol, every story that ends and begins again. It lives in tattoos and flags, in lullabies and logos, in monuments and music. We gave it feathers, we gave it fire, but more than anything, we gave it faith. That no matter how far we fall, we can rise, and that some part of us, the truest part, can survive the burning and come back new. That is what carries the phoenix across oceans, across centuries, across hearts. Not wings, not flames, but the truth we're all trying to remember. Chapter 5. Ashes speak softly. Not every fire roars, some burn in silence, slow, steady, unseen, the kind that smoulders beneath the skin, beneath the soul. The phoenix does not always rise with a scream. Sometimes it rises with a whisper, after the wings fall, after the feathers blacken, after the world grows quiet. There is a moment, still, empty, endless. It feels like death, but it's not. It's the space between. The space where something old has ended and something new has not yet begun. In this moment, there are no flames, no flight, no glory, only ash, software weightless, waiting. This is where the real transformation begins, not in the rising, but in the resting. The phoenix, for all its fire, understands stillness. It knows that before it can be born again, it must let go completely, not just of body, but of identity, not just of shape, but of story. What we rarely speak of here is the courage it takes to lie down in your own ashes, to stop fighting, to stop pretending you haven't burned, to say, I am not who I was. And that's okay, because before we rise, we break. And in the breaking, there is mourning. Mourning for what we thought would last. For who we thought we were. For the dreams that didn't survive the fire. The ashes are honest. They don't pretend. They don't shine. But they hold everything that mattered. Everything that hurt. Everything that brought you here. And within them, buried deep, is the spark. You don't need to chase the fire. It will come. You don't need to rush the rising. It will happen. You only need to sit and listen and breathe, because ashes speak. And when they do, they say this: you are not broken. You are becoming. The phoenix does not rush back into the sky. It waits. It feels the loss. It honors the fall. It lets the past become dust, not so it can be forgotten, but so it can be released. In our lives, there are moments when everything crumbles. A relationship ends. A job disappears. A dream collapses under the weight of reality. We say, it's over. And in that grief, we forget endings are fertile. Ash is soil. Nothing grows on hard stone. But from the ashes, yes, from the ashes, new life stirs. It doesn't look like glory at first. It looks like aching, like quiet, like waiting for something you cannot name. But deep beneath that stillness, your fire is gathering. The phoenix teaches us that becoming new does not mean becoming fearless. It means walking through fear and still choosing to rise. It means letting the past burn without trying to save what no longer serves. It means trusting the dark long enough to find the light. And when the spark finally returns, you'll feel it. A warmth, low in the chest. A sense of weight lifting, not because everything is fixed, but because something inside you has shifted. You are no longer afraid of being ashes, because now you know what ashes can become. From that quiet place, the phoenix begins again. One breath, one thought, one tremble of the wings. The fire doesn't erupt. It unfolds, like morning light on a soul that has learned to be still. You don't need to be ready. You don't need to feel strong. You only need to not resist the next beginning. Let it come like smoke into sky, like song into silence, like the phoenix softly rising. Remember this: the flames do not make the phoenix powerful. The ashes do, because that is where it chooses to surrender. That is where it listens. That is where it learns what it will carry forward and what it must leave behind. We spend so much of our lives fearing the fall, fearing failure, loss, change. But the phoenix falls on purpose. It burns by choice, because it knows something we forget. The self that rises is never the same, and that is the gift. So if you find yourself in the ashes, stay there, listen, rest, grieve. The fire is not gone. It's simply waiting for the part of you that is ready to rise. Chapter 6. Flame in the Modern Mirror. The world has changed, but the phoenix remains, not as a creature in the sky, but as a symbol we've stitched into every corner of our lives. You'll find it now not only in temples and scrolls, but in movie scenes, comic panels, song lyrics, and city streets. The myth survived because it adapted, because we still burn and we still rise. In stories told on silver screens, the phoenix returns again and again. A child with powers too great to control. A hero who loses everything and claws their way back. A world that collapses and then learns to breathe again. We watch, we cheer, we cry, because we recognize something old inside, something new. We recognize ourselves. In fantasy, the phoenix is reborn in glowing feathers and battles won through sacrifice. In science fiction, it takes the shape of civilization reborn. Ruins turned into rocket ships, planets made from the remains of the last. In horror, the fire is darker. It consumes what hides beneath the skin. But even there, especially there, rising is still possible. Modern myths are dressed in pixels now. We wear them like armor. We tap their rhythms into keyboards and touchscreens. We scroll through them on sleepless nights, searching. For what? For fire. For proof that no matter how broken the world becomes, something beautiful can come after. The phoenix is in our music too. In every song that starts in heartbreak and ends in hope. In every lyric that says, I lost myself, but now I'm found. Artists write their fires into melody. They lay their ashes in verse. They rise not just for themselves, but for anyone listening who forgot they could. Even in fashion, in ink on skin, in murals on cracked brick walls, the phoenix appears. Wings wide, head lifted, fire in its chest. A reminder painted bold, you survived. You can start again. But the phoenix isn't always painted in flames. Sometimes it's subtle, hidden in a glance, a breath, a choice, in a person who returns to school after years away, in someone who gets out of bed after weeks of not knowing how, in someone who forgives themselves. These are the phoenix stories that don't make headlines, but matter just as much. Because the world still asks us to burn, to let go, to lose things we thought we couldn't live without. And when we do, when we rise, quiet or loud, we carry the myth forward. We become the fire and the flight, in therapy rooms, in recovery groups, in whispered prayers. The phoenix is there too, not as a bird, but as a symbol of healing. A woman grieving what she never got to say. A man learning that his anger was armor. A child becoming brave enough to speak their truth. These are flames that do not burn skin, but break chains. Even our language is full of the phoenix now. Rock bottom. Starting over. Reinvention. We say it without thinking, but every one of those words carries fire, carries flight, carries the soul of the myth. You don't need to believe in a magical bird to believe in becoming new, because you've done it before. You've lost. You've changed. You've survived things you thought would end you. And here you are. That is the phoenix in you. What was once worshipped in temples is now lived in daily life. What once was carved in stone is now carved in story, in choice, in quiet transformation. And yes, there are those who try to sell the phoenix, to turn its power into product, to stamp it on slogans, to use its name without honouring its truth. But even that proves how deep the myth runs. Because if it weren't powerful, they wouldn't try to claim it. If it weren't real, we wouldn't feel it every time we fall and rise again. We live in a world on fire, politically, environmentally, emotionally. And in that fire, people are looking for something to hold. Something that says, this doesn't have to be the end. The phoenix is that something. Not because it fixes things, but because it tells the truth. That you can fall apart and still come back. That endings are not failures. They're thresholds. That who you were is not who you must remain. You may not see yourself in ancient feathers. You may not feel like a creature of myth. But if you've ever let something go, if you've ever chosen to heal, if you've ever decided to begin again, you've lived this story. You are living it now. The modern world doesn't need new myths. It needs to remember the old ones and live them differently. The phoenix didn't survive for thousands of years because of wings. It survived because its story matches our own. And we keep telling it because we need to hear it. Again, and again, and again. Chapter 7. The Inner Phoenix. Not all fires burn outside us. Some begin deep within, quiet as breath, persistent as heartbeat. The phoenix has wings, yes, but its true flight begins inside the soul. Carl Jung, the great watcher of dreams, called this kind of fire individuation. The slow burning away of illusion, until only the self remains. Not the self we present or protect, but the one buried beneath story, expectation, and fear. The phoenix, in Jung's eyes, was an archetype, a symbol of transformation through descent. To rise, you must first fall. To become whole, you must face the parts you've denied. This is not a battle. It's an unveiling, like flame peeling bark from a tree, revealing the truth beneath. The inner phoenix does not show itself with wings or flames. It shows itself when you finally stop running, when you sit with the ache, when you ask the hard questions, when you look into the mirror and don't look away. This is the descent into the unconscious, the shadow self, the place where all you've buried waits to be seen, not to shame you, but to free you, because what we repress rules us, and what we face transforms us. The phoenix in you knows how to face the fire. It knows that pain is not the end of you. It knows that grief is a passage, not a prison. It knows that when the false layers fall away, what remains is stronger, not untouched, but unbreakable. This is the great secret of the myth. You are the fire, and the ashes, and the one who rises. You are not separate from the story. You are its heart. The inner phoenix whispers in the dark moments, when everything falls apart, when your name no longer fits, when you're too tired to try again. It whispers, burn, but don't break. Let it fall away. Let yourself begin. The process is not clean, not noble, not pretty. It's confusion, rage, sorrow you didn't know had weight, screaming into pillows, writing pages you never show, tearing down the mask you forgot you were wearing. But that tearing, that's the flame. That's the start of flight. In mythology, the phoenix doesn't simply die and reappear. It builds the pyre. It chooses the fire. It surrenders to the ash. That choice is what makes it sacred. That choice is yours too. In real life, rebirth doesn't come with sparks. It comes with silence. After the divorce, after the diagnosis, after the job ends, after the breakdown, when everything familiar is gone and you're left with just yourself, that's when the phoenix wakes. You may not feel strong. You may feel wrecked. But the soul doesn't rise because it's untouched. It rises because it's been changed. The phoenix doesn't regret burning. It needs it. So do we. Transformation asks something hard of us. To let go of who we were, even if we loved that version. To step into who we're becoming, even if we don't yet understand it. That's why the phoenix waits. Until we're ready. Until the old shell cracks. Until we say, I cannot stay the same. And then it happens. Not all at once, but slowly. You breathe again. You speak softer. You stand taller. You notice light where there was only shadow. You are still you, but more honest, more whole, more true. The inner phoenix doesn't just change what you see. It changes how you see. You no longer fear endings. You no longer cling to masks. You no longer shrink to stay safe. You begin to live as someone who is burned and come back. Someone who knows that loss does not mean failure, and change does not mean defeat. The people around you may not understand. They may still see the ashes. They may not believe in the fire you've walked through. That's okay. The phoenix doesn't rise to prove anything. It rises because it must, because it has become too small for the cage it once lived in. So if you feel yourself unraveling, if the life you've built feels too heavy, too quiet, too false, listen. The phoenix is already stirring. Within you, around you, through you. Not to destroy, but to release. You are allowed to grow out of your past. You are allowed to let go of old dreams. You are allowed to become someone new, over and over again. There is no limit to how many times you can rise. In therapy, in meditation, in movement, in solitude. Every step inward is a wing beat toward transformation. Every truth faced is a spark. Every act of courage, no matter how small, fans the fire. The phoenix is not a legend of perfection. It is a myth of resilience, of healing, of mess, of sacred, soul-deep change. You don't become who you are by avoiding the fire. You become by walking through it and trusting you will come out whole. Chapter 8. The Last Flight, the First Dawn. The phoenix does not rise forever, not in one stretch, not without pause. Even the final flight has a landing. Even the brightest flame gives way to morning. But what matters is not the end. It's the change. It's the shape the fire took inside the soul. What it burned away. What it left behind. What rose in its place. The phoenix lands not in triumph, but in stillness. The wings fold. The fire quiets. And in that silence, something sacred settles. Wholeness. Not perfection. Not invincibility. But the deep knowing that you have been through fire and become yourself. This is not where the story ends. This is where it becomes yours. You've heard the myths, felt the ash, faced the fall. Now the question becomes, what will you do with the rising? Because we all have a phoenix inside, not one made of feathers or smoke, but of memory, choice, the inflame, the kind of flame that waits patiently until you're ready to begin again. This myth does not belong to temples anymore. It lives in you, in your heartbreak, in your healing, in every version of yourself you've outgrown. You do not need to be ancient to be sacred. You only need to begin again on purpose. Every time you choose growth over fear, you rise. Every time you choose truth over silence, you rise. Every time you step into the unknown, instead of shrinking back, you rise. It doesn't always look like flames. It doesn't always feel like flight. But it is. It is. The phoenix isn't about glory. It's about honesty. To say, I have changed. I am changing still. That is the fire. That is the myth. And no one else has to believe it for it to be real. So many people live their lives trying not to burn, trying not to fall apart, trying to stay safe. But the phoenix teaches the opposite. Let it fall. Let it burn. Let what is false collapse, so what is real can rise. And what rises, if you let it, is something softer, truer, wiser. You may not have wings, but you will have light. You will have clarity, direction, peace that was earned through fire. Your rising will not always be seen. It will not always be celebrated, but it will be felt in how you speak, in how you love, in how you forgive. That is the legacy of the phoenix. Not flight, but transformation. Not spectacle, but soul. And as you rise, you carry more than yourself. You carry the stories of every person who hasn't yet found their spark. You become the signpost, the symbol, the myth made flesh. Not to save others, but to show them that rising is possible. Always possible. So look behind you, not in regret, but in awe. Look at the ashes you left behind, the version of you that didn't know how to rise until they did. Honor them. They were brave. Even their breaking was sacred. And now, look ahead. Not to a finish line, but to a horizon. To the next beginning. The next version. The next slow burn that will reveal even more of who you are. This story doesn't end with flight. It ends with a choice to keep becoming. The phoenix teaches that you don't just rise once. You rise over and over. Every ending is a new shape. Every fire is a new chance. You are allowed to change, to soften, to grow. You are allowed to be someone you've never been before. Let this be your dawn. Not someone else's story. Not a legend carved in stone, but a fire that lives in your chest, in your voice, in your steps forward. Let this myth breathe through you. Let it remind you that rebirth isn't just ancient. It's now. It's daily. It's waiting. And when the fire calls again, as it always will, don't be afraid. You've done this before. You'll do it again. Because the phoenix doesn't fear the flames. It is the flames. And so are you. The phoenix has flown through myth, through time, and now, through you. If you've ever broken and found the courage to begin again, then this was your story too. We rise, not because we are unscarred, but because we are willing. Thank you for walking this journey with us. If this story lit something inside you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more myths, more magic, and more truth. Until next time, may your next fire lead to flight, and may your next flight lead to peace.